Washington's clear-thinking headquarters. The Morning Majority, 5 to 9 on 630 WMAL.
737 on WMAL. Brian Eamonn, Tori Clark, former Pentagon spokeswoman in the House this morning. Joined now by Senator David Vitter, Republican from Louisiana. Senator Vitter, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Brian and Tori. Good to be with you.
Hey, I read your piece, and I know that this is something that you felt for quite some time. You know, when gas prices go way up, and then Congress holds these hearings, and nothing ever comes out of them. I'm curious to get your take. I know you're not necessarily an economist and you don't work for the big oil companies, but can you explain why are gas prices so high? Why are they $4 a gallon when the price of crude is around $100 a barrel? I mean, we've seen price of crude much higher than this, but we've never seen gas prices this high, at least not in the D.C. area.
Well, I mean, the price of the barrel has been going up in recent weeks, so it matches that in the sense. Now, I don't know, going back a year ago, what the comparison was. I just don't remember.
Yeah, well, the price of crude was much higher at one point, and I think it was at $140 a barrel at one point, and then we got to $4 a gallon gas, and now we're sitting at about $100 a barrel, but we still have $4 a gallon gas.
Yeah, I really don't know, Brian.
All right, your thought about the president and his decision this weekend to say, you know what, maybe we could open up some drilling in Alaska.
Well, look, I welcome any move in that direction. I'm just afraid this is all politics and little substance. I think he has two things in mind. First of all, he has his election in mind, and the price at the pump is enraging people. And secondly, he's looking at much bolder proposals in Congress, and I think he's actually trying to preempt and block those. So I think we just need to keep the pressure up so that we actually have movement and actually produce more here at home, and it's not all show and no substance.
Where are we in Louisiana right now, the Gulf of Mexico in general, with drilling?
Oh, we're almost where we were the day after the BP accident. I mean, almost a moratorium. There's not a formal moratorium, but there's a permit logjam that constitutes a de facto moratorium. We have a trickle of permits compared to pre-BP levels, so we have a lot further to go in terms of putting people back to work.
Well, what do you think is the best way to drive down the price of energy? I mean, is it just drilling alone, or what else can we do as far as policy to drive down the price of gas? Well,
Brian, I agree with the common sense of the American people, which is it's not either or in terms of new alternative energy versus oil and gas. It's all of the above. And we need to develop and use all of the above as we conserve, as we have more efficient technology. So it's not just either or, it's all of the above. But certainly that needs to include producing more energy here at home. Brian, we're the single most energy-rich country in the world, bar none. There's no one else that comes close except perhaps Russia. No Middle Eastern country comes close. But we're the only country in the world that takes 95% of those resources and puts it off the limits. And that's one of the things that has to change.
And, Senator, don't you think there's a national security argument you could make here?
Sure, absolutely. And, Tori, that argument is stronger than ever now, unfortunately, with tremendous turmoil, unrest, uncertainty in the Middle East. I mean, for us to depend so heavily on that region of the world when who knows what's developing and what direction it's going in is really dangerous.
Let me continue on that theme. There's been a lot of talk about aid to Pakistan recently, especially since the raid of Osama bin Laden. Are we giving too much money to Pakistan, or should that aid continue?
Well, we're certainly giving too much without enough assurances and without enough strings attached. I mean, the whole Osama bin Laden episode clearly illustrates that either that government is completely incompetent or completely in cahoots with Al-Qaeda or some combination. So I'm not saying we should cut that off tomorrow and walk away from Pakistan. They're too important, but clearly something has to change, and we have to demand more cooperation and a lot more sense of what's going on in that country.
Happy Debt Ceiling Day, by the way. Today was the day Tim Geithner, the Secretary of the Treasury, said essentially this is when we're going to be borrowing more money than we take in, and we need to raise the debt ceiling. Obviously, that's not going to happen anytime soon.
Right.
But what do you want? Can you give us specifics as what you want, what Republicans want to get out of this negotiation in order to raise the debt ceiling?
Yeah, we actually want to do something about the debt, not just the debt ceiling. You know, it's sort of like having a cousin who has a huge credit card problem, and he says, no problem, I know the solution, you just need to help me get a higher credit card limit. Well, that's not really the solution. The solution is to do something about spending and debt. And so what we want to get out of it is some bold reforms about spending and debt. My first choice would be a strong, balanced budget constitutional amendment.
That's going to take a long time to get a constitutional amendment, though. I mean, that's going to happen overnight.
It wouldn't take a long time through Congress if there was the will to do it. Of course, it has to be ratified by 3/4 of the states, but that's a gimme.
Right.
And that will absolutely happen. But if there were the will to do it, it wouldn't have to take a long time through Congress.
Really? You think it would be a slam dunk to get the states to get on board with that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I would tell the president, if that's the deal, then all I need is passage through Congress. We'll assume it'll get through the states.
Did you hear the comment Newt Gingrich made yesterday on Meet the Press when it comes to Paul Ryan's budget?
No, I didn't.
All right, I'm going to play this soundbite. This is David Gregory talking to Newt Gingrich, who now is a 2012 presidential candidate.
Do you think that Republicans ought to buck the public opposition and really move forward to completely change Medicare, turn it into a voucher program where you give seniors some premium support and so that they can go out and buy private insurance?
I don't think right-wing social engineering is any more desirable than left-wing social engineering. I don't think imposing radical change from the right or the left is a very good way for a free society to operate.
That was a pretty loud argument against Paul Ryan's plan. I'm wondering, were you surprised to hear that from Newt Gingrich, and do you agree with him?
I don't agree with him. I'm not surprised because Newt's running for president, and he has a lot of work to do in terms of repairing his own image and moving to the middle and being perceived as an electable candidate. And I think that's what it's about. It's not much about Medicare. I think that's what the comment is about.
Are you concerned at all that the Republicans are kind of backing off Paul Ryan's plan?
I don't think that's happening wholesale at all. I mean, you're pointing to one presidential candidate who has his own agenda, but overall, I don't think that's happening.
All right, Senator Vitter, good to have you on the program again. Thanks for your time as always.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you, sir.
And David Vitter here on WMA.